Three different women, three different zoos, one sign on every enclosure that said the same thing, and all three of them ignored it. Anacondas don't attack out of anger. They don't attack out of hunger. They attack because something triggered a response that 60 million years of evolution made impossible to stop. So what exactly did these women do that crossed that line? And why couldn't the staff get there in time? Every reptile exhibit in the world has the same sign. The words are always simple. The letters are always bold. And the message is always the same. Do not tap the glass. Not because it is impolite, not because it disturbs the other visitors, but because the animal on the other side of that glass does not know you are a person. It only knows that something is moving and something is close. Deborah Pace had been standing in front of the Anaconda enclosure at the Wildlife Discovery Center in Gurnee, Illinois, for 6 full minutes before she decided the snake was broken. That was the word she used, broken. She was 47 years old, wore a lanyard with a rewards card from a pet supply store, and had told 3 separate staff members that morning that she owned a ball python and therefore understood reptiles better than they did. When the green anaconda at the back of the enclosure failed to move for the 6th minute in a row, Deborah turned to the nearest employee and said the exhibit was false advertising. The snake, she said loudly, was doing absolutely nothing, and she had paid good money to see a snake that did something. Green anacondas are the heaviest snakes on Earth. The animal inside that enclosure weighed 215 pounds and measured just under 17 feet long. It could apply over 90 pounds of pressure per square inch when it coiled around prey, enough to make breathing impossible within seconds. But the detail most people never learn, the one that matters most in a moment like this, is that anacondas hunt by sensing heat and movement through small pits along their jaw. They do not need to see you. They do not need to hear you. They only need to feel that something warm is nearby and moving in a way that matches what prey moves like. That is all it takes to start a response that the snake cannot stop and will not stop. Deborah raised her right hand and knocked her knuckle against the glass. 1 tap. The snake did not move. She knocked again, harder this time, her palm against the surface, the sound loud enough to make the couple beside her step back. Then she pulled out her phone, turned the camera on herself, and grinned. She slapped the glass twice more while the camera filmed her face. She was laughing. She said into the phone that she was waking the big guy up. She said it like it was funny. She said it like nothing on the other side of that glass had noticed. But the anaconda had already moved 6 inches toward the glass before Deborah finished her sentence. What happened next took 11 seconds from start to finish, and the question that the incident report could never fully answer was not what the snake did. It was why it took staff 4 full minutes to reach her when the enclosure was only 40 feet from the main desk. That exhibit was not the only one. The same year, 4 states away, a different zoo had a different enclosure and a different woman who had already decided before she walked through the front gates that the rules were not meant for her. Tiffany Gross was 29 years old and had spent the drive to the Reptile Discovery Park in Dade City, Florida, telling her friend in the passenger seat that zoos put up barriers to control crowds, not for any real safety reason. She said it with total confidence. She said it the way people talk when they have already made up their mind and are no longer listening to anything that might change it. Tiffany was loud in the way that fills a room. Her friend walked slightly behind her, for most of the morning, which people who knew Tiffany said was a habit. The anaconda habitat at this facility was not behind glass. It was an open-top humidity enclosure, a wide, shallow pit with smooth concrete walls, a thick layer of moisture in the air, and a rope barrier set exactly 4 feet back from the edge. The rope was not decorative. It was not there to manage foot traffic or improve sight lines. A laminated card attached to the post said the enclosure was open top to maintain the animal's natural breathing environment, and that leaning over the edge was strictly forbidden. Tiffany read the sign. She looked at her phone. She looked back at the enclosure. Then she stepped over the rope. She wanted a photo from directly above. The angle from behind the rope, she told her friend, made the snake look small. She leaned forward over the concrete edge, one hand gripping the lip of the wall, her phone extended out over the open air of the enclosure. A gold bracelet slid down her wrist and caught the light. Her body heat moved forward over the pit. The humid air inside the enclosure carried warmth in every direction, and the anaconda, a 19-foot female, resting in a coiled position 8 feet below, had already shifted before Tiffany's phone was fully extended. This is the detail that nobody standing in that crowd understood as they watched it happen. Anacondas do not wait until they can see you clearly. They respond to heat and to movement at close range, a signal built so deep into the animal's body that it cannot be reasoned with and cannot be paused. When Tiffany's bracelet swung forward and her body heat dropped over the open enclosure, the snake did not decide anything. It simply responded, the way it had responded to the same signal for 60 million years. The animal moved upward along the wall with a speed that witnesses said did not seem possible for something that large. The first coil made contact before anyone behind the rope line had time to shout. And here is the question that nobody in that crowd thought to ask until it was already over. Where was the handler who was supposed to be stationed at this enclosure during peak visiting hours? The first 2 women survived. That is the only reason their stories came before this one. This third story is different. And if you have been watching closely, you already know why. Sandra Velk was 51 years old, a self-employed wildlife educator from Tucson, Arizona, who ran a small social media page with 11,000 followers, where she posted videos of herself handling reptiles and correcting what she called myths spread by people with no real experience. She had handled boa constrictors. She had held monitor lizards. She spoke about snakes the way a surgeon speaks about anatomy, with the calm authority of someone who believes they have already learned everything worth knowing. When she arrived at the Desert Reptile Expo in Phoenix that March morning, she had already decided the staff were amateurs. The anaconda on display was a 21-foot male on loan from a private conservation facility. It weighed 230 pounds. At full constriction, it could apply pressure exceeding 90 pounds per square inch across whatever part of the body it wrapped around, enough to stop the lungs from expanding within one breath, enough to slow blood returning to the heart within 3. The glass enclosure had 2 signs, one at eye level, one lower for children. Both said the same thing in the same bold letters. Sandra looked at both signs and then turned to the staff member standing nearby and told him the glass barrier was excessive for an animal this size, and that anyone with actual field experience would know that anacondas only strike when they feel genuinely threatened. The staff member, a 22-year-old named Cole, told her politely that the rule applied to everyone. Sandra told him she appreciated his enthusiasm. Then she pressed both palms flat against the glass and held them there, demonstrating to the small crowd that had gathered that nothing would happen. Cole stepped forward and told her she needed to stop. Sandra turned to face him fully and began explaining her credentials. She spoke for 9 seconds. Her hands stayed on the glass for all 9 of them. The Anaconda had been tracking the heat of her palms since the 4th second. The strike came at the start of the 11th second. The glass held, but the impact was violent enough that Sandra's forehead hit the surface when she flinched backward. Cole was already reaching for his radio. The crowd scattered. Sandra's leg gave out, and she went down hard on the concrete floor, her hands shaking, a sound coming from her throat that witnesses described as not quite a scream. The Anaconda held its strike position against the glass for another 4 seconds before withdrawing, its body moving in slow, deliberate coils back toward the center of the enclosure. The incident report noted that the response delay created by the verbal confrontation with staff was a significant factor in how close the outcome came to being fatal. She had 11 seconds from the moment first contact began. She used 9 of them arguing. What happened in the final 2 is the part the zoo never officially confirmed. After Deborah, the Wildlife Discovery Center installed motion sensors along the interior wall of the Anaconda enclosure and added a second staff member to the exhibit floor during peak hours. After Tiffany, the Reptile Discovery Park closed the open-top habitat for 11 days, replaced the rope barrier with a fixed aluminum rail, and retrained every floor employee on physical intervention protocol. After Sandra, the Desert Reptile Expo banned unsupervised public access to the Anaconda display entirely and required all of visitors within 10 feet of any large constrictor enclosure to be accompanied by a certified handler. 3 incidents, 3 different facilities, 3 different states, hundreds of miles between each one, and the same sign on the wall every single time. That is the detail that does not go away no matter how long you think about it. These women did not know each other. They had never been to the same city. They had no reason to make the same choice, but they did because the sign was never the point for them. The rule existed for other people. People who did not know what they knew. People who had not done what they had done. The enclosure, the rope, the laminated card, the staff member walking toward them with his hand already raised. All of it was background noise. The Anaconda never changed. It responded the same way in Illinois, in Florida, in Arizona. The same trigger, the same movement, the same result. 60 million years of instinct does not negotiate and does not care how many followers you have. 3 women, 3 cities, 1 rule. The real question was never what the snake would do. The snake was always going to do exactly what it did. The question is why all 3 of them were so certain they would be the exception.
The water turned red before she even had time to scream. 6 different women, 6 different oceans, and every single one of them broke the same rule their dive guide gave them before they ever hit the water. So, here's what you need to ask yourself before this video is over. If a single rule stands between you and a shark attack, how badly would you have to want that photo to ignore it? The regulator fell out of her mouth before anyone on the boat realized what was happening. The water around Nikita Reyes turned from blue to deep red in less than 4 seconds. Her dive guide, Marco, saw the shape first. A bull shark around 9 feet long and close to 300 pounds, making a second pass just below her fins. He had warned the group twice that morning. Do not reach toward the sharks. Do not extend your arms outside the cage. And do not make yourself look like bait. Nikita had nodded. She had also spent the last 20 minutes on deck telling other divers that Marco was being dramatic. And then the camera went in. That is how this story ends for 6 different women in 6 different places. One rule, ignored 6 times. And the ocean does not care how many followers you have, how experienced you think you are, or how much you paid for the trip. Shark diving operations around the world run on a set of rules built from real accidents. Guides do not make them up. The most important one, the one repeated at every briefing on every boat in every language, is this: keep your hands inside the structure. Sharks read movement the way you read words. An arm extending toward them in open water does not look like curiosity to a shark. It looks like a fish. It looks like something struggling. It looks like food. Bull sharks can detect a single drop of blood diluted across 100 liters of water. Great whites can sense the electrical field produced by a human heartbeat from more than a meter away. These animals have been hunting in the ocean for 450 million years. They are not aggressive, they are precise. And the moment a hand reaches out into their space, everything changes. All 6 women in this video were told this before they went under. The guides used clear words, some used hand signals. Some had their guests sign waivers that spelled it out in writing. It did not matter. Each woman decided in her own way that the rule did not apply to her. One wanted a better angle for her camera. One had dived with sharks before and thought she knew how they moved. One was angry that the guide had told her no and wanted to prove a point. Each reason felt reasonable in the moment. Each reason cost them everything. So what makes a person reach toward a shark? What is going through her head in that exact second when her hand crosses the line? By the time this video is over, you will know, and you will never look at a dive cage the same way again. Brianna Cole was 24 years old and had 180,000 followers on Instagram when she booked a cage dive off Guadalupe Island in Mexico. She had never dived with sharks before. She did not hide this fact. She also did not let it slow her down. On the boat, she set up a ring light on the railing and filmed herself applying waterproof mascara while Marco ran the safety briefing behind her. She laughed at the part about keeping hands inside the cage, calling it obvious. She had brought a wide-angle lens attachment for her phone and a selfie stick extended to about 22 inches long. She wanted a shot of the great white swimming directly toward the camera. When Marco told her the stick could not go in the water, she smiled and said she understood. She put the stick behind her back. It went in the water at 9:14 in the morning. The shark came at 9:16. It hit the stick first, then followed the vibration straight to her left hand, which was wrapped around the handle and extended 18 inches outside the cage bars. The bite severed 2 fingers completely. She was airlifted to a hospital in Ensenada, where she later told doctors she had not even felt it happen. She had been watching the screen. Sandra Okafor was 51 and had logged over 200 dives across 14 countries. She was a real estate agent from Houston who treated every trip like a competition she had already won. On the boat to Tiger Beach in the Bahamas, she corrected the dive guide 3 times before they reached the site. She told another passenger that tiger sharks were slower than people thought and that the danger was overstated by operators who wanted repeat customers. She had dived in open water with nurse sharks in Belize and said this was not much different. The guide, a man named Devon, had been running Tiger Beach dives for 11 years. He told Sandra that tiger sharks average between 11 and 14 feet and can weigh over 1,400 pounds. He told her their bite force reaches 325 pounds per square inch. He told her they are one of the few shark species documented to turn and make second and third passes on a target. Sandra said she had read the same things and understood the risk. What she did not understand was the specific shark moving in slow circles, 15 feet below the group that morning. It had been watching since they entered the water. When Sandra shifted position to get a clearer view and extended her right arm to wave Devon over, the shark was already moving. Devon said later that he had seen it begin to rise 3 full seconds before Sandra put her hand out. He was not close enough. The shark hit her forearm at full speed and dragged her 6 feet horizontally through the water before releasing. She survived. She lost full use of her right hand. 2 women. One was reckless because she was young and wanted attention. One was reckless because she thought experience made her immune. The shark treated both arms exactly the same. Rachel Torres was 38 and furious before the boat even docked at the site. She had paid for a premium shark dive experience in Fiji and spent the entire ride to the reef complaining that the group was too large and the briefing too long. When the guide told her that her GoPro mount could not extend past the cage, she called it ridiculous. She put it out anyway, 14 inches past the bars, exactly where a white-tip reef shark had been circling for the past 20 minutes. The shark bit the mount, and Rachel's wrist came with it. She required 60 stitches and 2 surgeries. Paula Marchetti was 45 and a hotel manager from Rome who had specifically requested a shark dive with no cage after watching a YouTube video of a diver hand-feeding a nurse shark in Thailand. The guide at her South African dive operation told her 3 times that this was not that kind of dive, and that the oceanic blacktip sharks at this site were not conditioned to human contact. Paula reached out to touch one as it passed. The bite took a palm-sized section of skin from her forearm down to the bone. Diane Cho was 33 and a self-described adventure blogger from Seoul who arrived at the dive site with a printed list of demands for the operator. She wanted a solo cage descent, a specific filming angle, and permission to remove her gloves so her hands looked better on camera. The guide denied all 3. Diane removed her gloves anyway, underwater. A 5-foot lemon shark made contact with her exposed fingers within minutes, drawn by the body heat differential her bare skin created in the 74-degree water. Her index finger was fractured in 3 places from the pressure alone. Christine Vance was 57 and a school principal from Atlanta, who had spent the boat ride announcing that she was not afraid of anything. She repeated this when the dive guide in the Maldives told the group that reaching toward a whale shark, even a gentle one, disrupted its movement pattern and could cause it to turn sharply. Christine reached out to stroke one as it passed. The whale shark's tail, 12 feet wide and moving at 3 miles per hour, swung back and struck her across the chest with enough force to crack 2 ribs and break her collarbone. She went unconscious underwater and had to be pulled to the surface by another diver. She survived. She told the hospital nurse she had not expected that. 4 more women, 4 more broken rules, 4 different oceans, 4 different sharks, 4 different outcomes, and not one of them, in the moment her hand crossed that line, believed anything would happen. 6 dives, 6 rules broken, 6 hands that went somewhere they were told not to go. The guides at every single one of these sites said the same thing before the water came up over their guests' heads. They said it plainly. Some said it more than once. The rule was not complicated. It was not unreasonable. It was not designed to ruin the experience. It existed because the thing already in the water is faster, stronger, and older than anything humanity has ever built. A shark does not know you paid a lot of money for this. It does not know you have been diving for years. It does not know you think the guide is being overcautious. All it knows is that something just moved into its space. And every single time, it responded the only way it knows how. Click here if you want to see what happens when people ignore the rules in the open ocean. 6 women, 6 different reasons, 6 moments where one decision changed everything. Some lost fingers, some lost the use of their hands, some did not make it back to the boat at all, and every single guide who watched it happen said the same thing afterward. They had warned them. The rule was not there to limit the experience. It was there because the ocean has been running its own rules for 450 million years, and it has never once made an exception for someone who thought they knew better. The shark never broke any rules. Only the humans did.